Welcome to Tales by Jin. I'm Jin, and you're listening to the Tales of Lux and Cor Gwyndolyn series. This is Adulthood Part 5, the 11th episode in the series. Sit back, relax, and let yourself be whisked away as we return to the world of Tenebrae to follow Gwyndolyn on her continued adventures in the Dragon Wastes of Cor and beyond. In the clearing in front of the cave entrance beneath the tree, Titus exhaled through gritted teeth. A constant stream of flames licked the corners of his mouth along with the air escaping him. Far more air than what even his embiggened lungs could hold, but that was the nature of magic. Breath and flame continued to hiss from his mouth at a steady, controlled rate as he shrank and shrank until he returned to his normal size.
I didn't realize you could control the heat that came off of you to that degree,
Gwyn mused.
I was worried about burning stuff down if we did this too close to home.
Titus rolled his neck and shrugged. Some years back and you'd be right, but I spent some time getting myself under control, much to the dismay of my former clan.
Dismay?
You don't earn the title of Inferno by holding back and not incinerating everything in sight.
Fair enough.
Anywho, I don't suppose we're out here to chit-chat, so how about we quit wasting daylight and get started?
I'd love nothing less,
Gwyn said, brimming with anticipation. Titus stepped back from Gwyn, creating a comfortable amount of space between them. Flames sprouted from the base of his claws and talons, but the air around him didn't shimmer with heat, neither did the ground dry and crack. He breathed deeply, then regarded Gwyn. So, as I demonstrated a moment ago, the first step is to gather your magics. Gather as much as you can, and let it fill up your body without any spilling out into the world. Gwyn nodded. Mimicking Titus, she inhaled deeply through her nostrils and focused on the flow of energy within. Tried to focus. Tried really, really hard. But ever since Titus destroyed her silks in their first encounter, she found it difficult to focus her magic without dancing, or fighting for her life. No matter how much she strained or how calm she remained, she couldn't feel more than the faintest tingle in the deepest pit of her stomach. If you gotta poop, I can wait.
You know damn well that's not why I'm making this face, Titus.
Yeah, I do. That's why I got you a little something special for today. Well, also for not throwing me out on my tail and dragging me back to your clan after giving me, this, he said, tapping the jagged circular scar on his forehead. Also, I may be keenly aware that I might have had something to do with destroying your old focus, and I'd rather not have to be on hand all the time to push you into that life or death corner, just so you can access your magics on the regular. Just, wait here a moment. I'll be right back. Titus jogged over to where his pack lay by the cave entrance and removed 2 lengths of blackened chain. Returning to Gwyn, he knelt before her and presented the pair of chains with all the reverence of a holy man offering a sacred item before an altar. If it pleases your elderness, I found these on an expedition some weeks back. I already tested them. They seem to conduct magic real well, like those silks you used to have. Might be a sight heavier, though.
Oh, get off,
Gwyn hissed as she playfully snatched the chains from Titus. She quickly found, however, that he wasn't exaggerating about the weight, as simply holding them in hand was somewhat taxing. She took a moment to wrap the chains around her paws and forearms like she always did with her silks. They were about the same length as the silks, but the chains certainly came with a bulkiness that she would have to get used to. Not that it would take long, though, because she could already feel her magic welling up within and flowing into the lengths of metal links. Gwyn undid the practiced loop that kept the chains tight to her forearms when not in use, and the loosened lengths undulated around her, weightless. She went through the first few motions of one of her dances, and the chains readily responded to the changes in electricity and moved more or less in sync with her. More or less, because unlike the silks, these links of metal seem to require far less of her magical energy to manipulate. She would need to be careful using these around people who weren't as sharp and hardy as Titus, who currently held fast to an errant length of chain that whipped a bit too wide during one of her spins. Metal was a much better conductor of electricity than silk, after all. "Looks like you're taken to them well enough," Titus said, releasing the still wriggling chain. "Guess that means you don't need to spar with me to get those magic juices flowing anymore."
No, we can still do that.
Though calling it sparring was a bit of a misnomer given how intensely they went at it at Gwyn's urging. Thinking about the excitement she felt every time they threw all of themselves at each other, the feeling that sparked up and rushed through her every time their claws clashed, Gwyn cleared her throat.
Thank you. These will do nicely.
"My pleasure. Now then, shall we get back to it?" Gwyn nodded, but this time, instead of separating from her like before, Titus stood behind her, straddling her tail. He rested his arm on her narrow shoulders and let his claws drag their way down her cream-scaled chest to her stomach. With his lips caressing the base of her jaw right below her ear, he said, "It's fine to let the chains help you draw out your magic and all, but what you're gonna do now is..." He framed her stomach with his paws and squeezed ever so gently. "Focus all that energy right here." Gwyn gulped, then nodded slowly. "Yes. Focus. Easy enough?" Well, not really. Not easy at all, actually. With her focuses in hand, she was great at letting it flow out, and pretty decent at controlling the volume of that outward flow too. But to turn that back in and not shock the shit out of herself like she did when rescuing Alexis, that would take an incredible amount of will. Good thing her entire existence from birth to this very moment was forged by the power of her will. The chains went slack as her refocused will drained them of her lightning magics and bundled all that energy up in her core. The energy continued to build and grow until her stomach felt physically full and jittery. She looked down, and lights roiled within like the heaviest of lightning storms from the dragon wastes were contained within her. Titus leaned in close to her ear and whispered, "That's right. Just like that." He drew his claw up over the dancing lights and laid his paws flat against her chest. As he did, the air around them, more specifically his touch and her body, grew warmer still. Hot, but not uncomfortably so. Gwyn could feel his magics intermingling with hers and shuddered at the sensation. "This time, I use my fire to guide your lightning. I want you to bring it all here." One paw remained on her chest. The other slid up to caress her throat.
"Only this time?"
said Gwyn, voice wavering with the effort to keep in what threatened to explode out. "We'll just have to see how well you do this time, now won't we?" Flames licked up Gwyn's sides, guiding the bald torrent of lightning from her core up to her throat. As it approached, Titus slid the paw on her throat along the bottom of her snout and angled it directly upward. He hooked a single claw into her mouth and gently pulled on her lower jaw until she was gaping at the veil above. Good, very good. But now comes the hard part." Titus let the hand still on Gwyn's chest trail down her arm before stepping back a pace, still straddling her tail. "What you're gonna do now is expel, careful now, that ball of magic and let it hang in the air just above your mouth. Not like a breath attack, controlled, calm. Keep that magic tethered to your essence like there's a chain between you and it, just like you always do. Except there's no chain here, just you and a ball of pure magical essence born into the world floating right above you. Words, so many words. Get it out, but don't lose it. Simple enough. Until the electricity crackling in her throat rose and burned and stung and fought to be released, to be free, to strike. But she was Gwyndolyn, elder of Clan Brightscale. This was her body, her magic. She was in control. Power born of her essence would obey her will. Leave her mouth and nothing more. Stay connected. Stay tethered. My power. My will. Titus took another cautious step back as the growing, volatile ball of lightning crackled, thundered, flared, just above Gwyn's gaping maw. Part of him stared in disbelief at the blinding display before him. He hadn't really expected her to pull it off at all, much less on the first try. Sure, it was unrefined and pulsed dangerously, but it was a far sight better than his first attempt, and infinitely more than anyone that wasn't him was capable of. For starters, it hadn't exploded to bits. Yet. As the light from the crackling energy flickered across his face, Titus finally understood why this clan followed Gwyndolyn unequivocally. How all these disparate kobolds from completely different clans could come together and exist the way they did. How this clan lasted as long as it had in this cruel and unforgiving world. If Gwyndolyn set her mind to something, not even the veil itself could stop her. A part of him felt such an indomitable spirit was wasted on a kobold whose only purpose was to live, bleed, and die in the wastes. Then again, this clan of hers was proof that things didn't have to be that way. Maybe she was born exactly where she needed to be. Maybe she was what kobold kind needed after all. "Okay," Titus yelled over the roaring thunder as he shielded his eyes from the flashing lights. "What we do now is we swallow that whole mess right back down. That's right," he added upon noticing her quirked eye ridge. "Back down it goes, and then you let it explode out within you. Careful not to just explode you, though. That's a distinctly different result we don't want. Instead, let all that magic flow through you, through every bone and sinew, and let it shape you into something worthy of wielding it." Just casually swallow the lightning ball of death she summoned. Right, she could do that. Following her will, the maelstrom lowered toward her waiting maw. It froze in place as she had a critical realization. It was too big to fit. "I see you realized your mistake. Did that myself countless times trying to figure this whole thing out. Figured I'd let you experience it once before warning you, though, so you'd know what going too far felt like going forward. Now, we've got a few options here. I can transform again and shield you from the blast, or..." No. Gwyn wouldn't rely on his strength to fix a problem she created. If it was her energy, if it was still tethered to her, she should still be able to exert her will over it. And if she could exert her will over it, she could make it smaller, denser. So long as she didn't panic and let that control slip even for a second, of course. Didn't panic, didn't lose control, didn't get distracted by the dryness in her throat, the soreness of her jaw. Concentrate. Focus. Breathe. Inhale. Condense. Exhale. Inhale. Condense. Exhale. Again. And again. And again. Until the crackling thunder died down and the flashes of light calmed to a gentle, muted pulse. Titus, awestruck, circled around Gwyn to stand before her. He stared up at the pale blue orb hovering over her. It was no larger than a river pebble, and just as smooth. "Veil above, Gwyndolyn, you truly are something special." He took a moment to admire his, still struggling, mate and her work before continuing. "Okay, yeah, where were we? Right, back to the swallowing part. Remember, let the magic expand through you and let your body..." Enough talk. Gwyn snapped her jaws shut around the orb and swallowed. A blue light slid down her throat and settled in her stomach. It pulsed once, twice, then exploded out along her vascular system. Veins glowed bright beneath her scales as her body grew hot and itchy. Bones creaked and cracked as they lengthened. Muscles pulled taut as they struggled to keep up with her growing skeleton, then bulked up to match the new larger frame. Her heart beat faster, faster, faster still, until it felt like it was quivering in place. Her breath caught as she seized her chest with a massive paw, feeling for any sort of sign from that all-important muscle until it too flooded with magic and grew to meet the demands of her much larger form. Relieved, she let her paw fall from her chest and allowed herself a moment to exist as the final changes slowed to a halt. Everything tingled. Everything buzzed. Every part of her being felt so much more powerful than before. She looked down, down, at Titus and grinned the biggest grin of her life. Though he was tall for a kobold, the tips of his horns barely reached her waist. She was huge. She was powerful, so much more powerful than before. She felt great. She felt unstoppable. She felt like her lungs were on fire. Even so, she dared not open her mouth. A strange itching in her throat told her it was holding back more than just spent air. That look tells me you just realized you're holding your breath, and maybe a little something extra to go with it, Titus said with an amused chuckle. Before you open that lovely mouth of yours, though. He pointed up at the veil above. You may want to lean back a bit. The intense tingling at the back of Gwyn's throat kindly informed her that, regardless of the strength of her will, her mouth would be opening very, very soon. She flicked her head back, opened wide, and... a blast of lightning larger than anything she or nature had ever produced exploded up into the sky, piercing the veil above. So intense was the light that the sky around it appeared to grow darker after its passing. So deafening was the thunderclap that Gwyn spent a few moments sprawled on her back, unmoving, wondering if the ringing in her ears would ever subside and her hearing would return. When she eventually sat up, she saw Titus holding his head with one paw and waving off clanmates that had come running with the other.
It's okay. That was me,
Gwyn said, or at least attempted to say. Even her own words sounded muffled beyond comprehension to her ears. They must have been clear enough, however, as the clanmates that had come to check in nodded to her and returned to the cave. Once they were well out of sight, she flopped onto her back again. Every inch of her body ached like she had just run the entire length of the dragon waste non-stop, only to get torn to pieces by a pack of shadow beasts at the end. She held one shaky paw over her face. It was disappointingly normal-sized. She let it fall back to her face with a muted smack. Only then was she aware of Titus's deep, rolling laughter becoming clearer with each passing moment. Groaning with effort, Gwyn managed to sit upright. Titus sat across from her, legs spread wide and pulled up, with his arms resting on his knees. His head hung loose with his paws as he slowly shook it back and forth.
What's so funny?
Good. She could hear herself again. Funny? Nothing funny here, Miss Gwyndolyn.
Then why are you laughing?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe because you just shot off a bolt of lightning powerful enough to knock us both on our tails and reach the veil? Or maybe because you actually managed the transformation first try like some kind of prodigy? I don't know, miss. Take your pick.
Maybe I did, but it was only a few seconds.
Only a few? Look, Gwyndolyn, it took me years to do even that much. Years more to control it as well as I do now. And if that weren't enough, no one else besides me has been able to do it at all, and not for lack of trying. You know what you sound like? Oh, woe is me. I only moved that mountain 3 feet. Miss, That's what you sound like. You moved a veil-damned mountain just now, and you're disappointed. That's what's funny.
Gwyn didn't have a response. Given that context, her disappointment did feel a little ridiculous. So instead of complaining further, she took his face in her paws, touched her forehead to his, and pushed him to his back. Then she flopped on top of him, a boneless bag of kobold. When it doesn't hurt to exist anymore, we're trying again. Titus chuckled.
I get the feeling any objections or urging to take it easy will be ignored, so sure. Let's see what you got.
Gwyn's tail noodled around his. You know me so well.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Tales of Lux and Cor, Gwyndolyn. If you liked what you've heard, please be sure to like the video and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to make sure you're notified when new episodes come out. Thanks for stopping by, and may your cave be ever warm.